Out of the primordial ooze comes the Screen Watching Podcast once again. This is our weekly deep dive into the movies, the TV shows, and the miscellaneous other things that we've watched during the week. I am, of course, Dan Barrett, joined here by Simon Foster. This week on the show, Wonder Man is the new Disney Plus TV series. It leaves me asking the question, what on earth is Marvel really trying to do? Like, really, what even is this? We're going to take a look at a movie. It's called Send Help. It's by Sam Raimi. You may know him from some of your favorite movies, like the Doctor Strange sequel, and where was that movie where you had Joey from Dawson's Creek sort of murdered and put into the
Killing
water?
Mrs. Tingle? Was that the one? No,
that's not a Sam Raimi. Do you know anything about movies, Simon? No,
don't
answer that. Folks, we're going to keep on moving. I think it was called The Gift from memory. Anyway.
Oh, right, yes.
Continuing on, what else have been watching? Great question. We're going to take a look at something called Worldbreaker. No idea what that is. Melania. I'm not even going to acknowledge it. Why we're not talking about Blue Moon? Good question. Let's discuss that next week. I've been rewatching The X-Files, and look, there's a little TV show that I'm going to be talking about. It's pretty out of left field because nobody's talking about this program in 2026, but I posed the question on this podcast. Is this maybe the most vital TV show that we should be talking about in 2026? Yes, I am talking about the 1984 miniseries V and its sequel, V, The Final Battle. Folks, it's a jam-packed program, and we only get to it by playing the titles.
This is not like TV, only better.
Television! Teacher, mother!
Secret lover.
What, that's it? That's your movie?
Well, I said that I had an idea for a movie.
All right, we're here for Screen Watching. Simon Foster, big question for you. We are going to talk about Send Help in a couple of minutes' time, but it leaves me asking the question because this is one of my favorite genres. What's your favorite island on movies and TV shows? Is it Lost? Is it Gilligan's Island? Let's get into this all.
This is interesting. Hello, Screen Watchers everywhere. Good to be back with you in this fascinating week to be talking film and television. Which is my favorite TV/movie island? Okay, first of all, I'm very happy to have this topic because it allows me to plug my Melbourne Science Fiction Film Festival, where Island of Dr.
I wish
Moreau.
I hadn't fallen for this trap.
I know, you fell right into it. Island of Dr. Moreau with Val Kilmer, the 1996 version. I love the Dr. Moreau stories. I'd love to be trapped on an island full of furries. So, yeah, that's happening March 8 at Cinema Nova. Get your tickets now at the website. Or my favorite TV or movie island, I'm going to say a little island off the coast of Costa Rica called Isla Nublar, Jurassic Park.
What?
Yeah, Jurassic Park.
That's not even on the map, Simon. It's not even on the maps.
Well, hey, I'm keen to hear what you've got to say about Gilligan's Island, which is nor on the maps. Yes, I think if I wanted to be stranded on any island anywhere, it would be with dinosaurs and Sam Neill and Laura Dern all around me having a whale of a time. So, yes, I'm going to say Isla Nublar or Nublar off the coast of Costa Rica.
If you were in Jurassic Park and or Jurassic World, you'd be dead in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be one of the guys on the computers who try to get to the boats and don't know. I'd be Wayne Knight. I'm turning into Wayne Knight to some extent, but I would be Newman on Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you really are the Wayne Knight of this podcast. I've said that for a while now.
I really am. Foster.
Look, so I talked about Gilligan's Island,
yes.
But you know what? I've certainly seen a little bit of Gilligan's Island in my time, being the TV series.
Sure.
But I watched the Gilligan's Island TV movie, Gilligan's Island, and wait, not Return to Gilligan's Island, not one of those other ones.
Yeah.
The one that I've watched so much, the Harlem Globetrotters and Gilligan's Island.
I knew it. Who has if you haven't seen it, you've got to see this movie, people.
It's incredible.
It is a lot of fun.
Now, the question and look, I mean, this certainly applied during the TV series original run, but certainly we'll use the Harlem Globetrotters and Gilligan's Island as a pretty good example here. All these people come to visit the island. They know they're there. Why are they not leaving?
Of course, yeah. Yeah,
there's a
big plot hole in there,
for
sure. I'm surprised you say that because you're not a sports person, and yet here you are weighing in on the stranding of a significant basketball team on a remote castaway island.
I mean, they definitely are the greatest basketball team I mean, there's no doubts about that.
Well, you just
But
look at their win-loss record.
you have to keep in mind, I'm a child of the 80s, and the Harlem Globetrotters did a fantastic marketing job through the 80s of getting a whole bunch of like pop cultural, their talons into pop culture at the time.
Oh, for
So
sure.
there was,
Sonny and Cher.
well, I was thinking there was like a whole bunch of Harlem Globetrotters animated shows, and, there's that TV movie. Like, they just did this great job of permeating the pop cultural landscape in a way that impacted me as a youngster.
I
But
saw them.
Simon,
I
oh,
went and
really?
saw them at the Horden Pavilion. Yeah, my dad and mum took the family along to watch the Harlem Globetrotters. I must have been 9 or 10 maybe when I saw them. But yeah, vivid memories of it. And when I say vivid, I mean blurry, but generally I remember being there.
There was a bit of an effort a couple of years ago to try to revive the Harlem Globetrotters and try to, reinstitute them as like a globally known presence, but didn't really seem to take off.
Didn't stick. No.
Bit of a shame. You had the two Harlem Globetrotters on a couple of seasons of The Amazing Race. That was
okay.
Flight Time and Big Easy, but, that was probably the, biggest it got. But look, there's a couple of other island-based things, and I love this as a genre.
Yeah.
I think it's always a fantastic thing where you see someone stuck on an island and you've
Oh.
got to get off, and there's,
It wasn't easy to
coconuts
settle on.
and-
It wasn't easy to set a coconut telephone, stuff like that. It wasn't easy to settle on. Jurassic Park is my favorite island because you've also got one of my favorite movies is Lord of the Flies, which is about the school kids trapped on the island, and there's a new TV series version of that coming along soon. If I've seen my
You are correct. It's coming from the
Yes.
BBC. And you know what? I looked at that and thought, the last thing I need in my life is yet another take on Lord of the Flies. Haven't we fucking seen that story enough times?
Well, yeah, that's the curse
it
that
is
falls
so
upon us in this
tired.
era of IP regurgitation, and it's a point that
Hey, how about we do Sense and Sensibility again, huh? Wouldn't that
Exactly.
be a great idea?
See, now this brings me to a point, and we're getting a bit off topic here, but Quentin Tarantino said, why do I want to go and see another version of Robin Hood? Why do I want to see another version of Sense and Sensibility? What you have to convince me is that the person remaking this storyline is somebody whose version of it I want to see. And that's a huge ask. I don't know if I want to see anyone other than Ang Lee and Emma Thompson do Sense and Sensibility, or the kids from the original Lord of the Flies, not be around for this remake. You're absolutely right. It's this era of just trying to decide whether we want to see the same story but with cameras in a different position, and that's one of the big problems we have with our content at the moment.
Anyway, I never actually gave my answer to my favorite
What's your
island-based
favorite
thing.
island?
Blue Lagoon. Folks, let's move on to what we're going to discuss this week. I'm going to take a look at Wonder Man on Disney+. Let's watch a trailer.
A superhero remake. Not exactly what we'd expect from an Oscar-winning director.
This is the world. It's everything. If I get this close and I miss,
I'm gonna need you to sign this to confirm you don't have superpowers.
Wonder Man, it's the latest Marvel TV joint. This is an 8-episode TV program. It's a metatextual journey. It's a comedy, dramedy type thing taking place within the world of Marvel. Doesn't feel like the rest of your Marvel shows, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. This is a show from Destin Daniel Crescent. He's the director behind the Shang-Chi film from a couple of years ago. And in this one, you've got in the lead role, I'm not going to call him the titular Wonder Man because that's not really quite accurate entirely. But he's played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He's playing his character called Simon Williams, who is I'm going to call him an aspiring actor, an aspiring star. Like, he is acting, and this show is very much about the values of being an actor, the day-to-day life of acting. So you've got him. He's at the stage of his career where he's kind of getting a number of sort of day player roles on various TV shows. We see him in the opening of this one. He's got a day spot on the American Horror Story TV show, and he screws it up in a way that he screws up a lot of his gigs, which is that he's just a little bit too method in trying to get to the core as to who a character is. And in the world of television, where production moves along at quite a clip, he slows down production, just kind of annoys a lot of people. And the thing that his biggest impediment to finding success is himself and his craft and his love of acting. He also has a little bit of a superpowered secret, but, that's not really necessarily at the forefront of the show entirely. A lot of this really is about the struggles of being an actor in Los Angeles. He has a quote unquote chance encounter with another actor who's much further in his career, played by the great Ben Kingsley. It's Trevor Slattery, who we know from the Iron Man 3 movie quite a few years back. And he's reprising the same character here, and he's the older day player. He's effectively Simon Williams, but much further in his career and just has a lot more stories to tell about Hollywood of yesteryear. This is unlike any other Marvel TV program that we've seen so far. It's unlike any of the movies. The way the critics keep talking about this is, hey, if you're not really into superheroes that much, or you got superhero fatigue, check this out. It's really, really good. Which is kind of just that way of giving it sort of faint praise. A guy, oh, it's not really a superhero thing. And it's like, well, if the value of this isn't that it's a superhero project, movie or TV show or whatever, like, why am I watching it? Like, can't I just watch an episode of Barry, for example, which is exploring kind of similar-ish terrain, but, just approaching genre in just an entirely different way? I mean, at a certain point, a Marvel superhero show needs to look and feel like a Marvel superhero show. The problem with the look and feel of a Marvel superhero show is that it's been kind of a bit of a dull experience for the last 5 or 6 years. Some would suggest longer than that, and I'd probably be in that crowd. But like at the same time, like, there is kind of like certain expectations of what a Marvel product should be. And when you're getting this far out of the boundary, that causes a problem. Now, ordinarily, that doesn't cause a problem. Like you think about, say, WandaVision when that came out years ago, and that's the really good comp for this. When WandaVision came out years ago, you've got this situation where it felt quite different to all the other Marvel stuff. And the point of difference was what worked about it. But also, it's happening at a time where people were still actively engaged with all the other Marvel stuff. When Marvel as a broader brand isn't necessarily working, and then you got this thing which is completely counter to what Marvel's product is about, then it just feels off. Like, why am I necessarily watching a Marvel program here? Like, couldn't this just be something else? It's a frustrating experience, and the metatextual element of this is just coming along at the exact wrong time for what Marvel needs to be. Instead of giving us metatextual, just give us a good product for once, which we haven't really seen for like about 5 years, outside of maybe WandaVision and the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, it just kind of feels as though the energies are placed in the entirely wrong position, and it makes sense that Disney are burning this off. They've dropped all 8 episodes at once, and the only other time they've done that for a Marvel TV show, I think, was the Echo TV show. And, considering that, I'm sure there's probably tumbleweeds, as I mentioned, the Echo TV show. I don't think that anyone's necessarily all that invested in that as a program, nor did it seem was Disney or Marvel. Look, I just think this is the wrong program for the wrong time. And look, that said, it's fine. All right, Simon, I don't know how much you're across Wonder Man discourse from this past week.
First of all, I keep thinking you say one demand, and so I'm a little bit confused what you're talking about. Now I realize it's the Marvel Wonder Man thing. I think that's your Queensland accent coming through again. It occasionally rattles me.
I don't really have a Queensland accent. I've got a South Australian accent
No,
broadly
okay.
coming through. It's the what I usually refer to as the Puncy Alexander Downer accent.
That's definitely
Anyway.
there.
I've got one demand, Simon. One demand, which is, hey Marvel, how about you give me a superhero TV show or a movie, which is blatantly just a superhero TV show or movie. Don't try to, So Wonder Man's the latest Marvel superhero joint. In this one, it's a TV series, runs, I think it's 8 episodes. Destin Daniel Cretton, who's the guy that directed the... So talking Wonder Man, which is the latest Marvel TV joint, this is an 8-episode show. Every episode debuted on the one day, which is usually Marvel's way of dumping a TV program. Most of the Marvel shows have gone out weekly, but you'll find that a couple of months back we had Echo, which I think was a 4 or 6 episode series, all dumped on the one day. And now we've got Wonder Man, which is kind of going through the same situation again. This one, it's directed primarily by, I think entirely by Destin Daniel Cretton. He's the guy that did the Shang-Chi movie a couple of years back. And in this one, it's a very metatextual journey into the Marvel universe. You've got this guy, he's an actor named Simon something or other. I've got a note here. Simon Williams, he's an aspiring actor. He's a bit of a day player. He doesn't really have a lot of cred within the industry, but he's been working at it for 8 years, and he's hoping for that one breakthrough. I should say Simon Williams, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He is a method actor. So Wonder Man is the latest Marvel TV joint. It's an 8-episode show, and every episode dropped on the debut day, which means that Marvel is quite... Wonder Man, it's the latest Marvel TV joint. This is an 8-episode TV program. It's a metatextual journey. It's a comedy, dramedy type thing taking place within the world of Marvel. Doesn't feel like the rest of your Marvel shows, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. This is a show from Destin Daniel Crescent. He's the director behind the Shang-Chi film from a couple of years ago. And in this one, you've got in the lead role I'm not going to call him the titular Wonder Man because that's not really quite accurate entirely. But he's played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He's playing his character called Simon Williams, who is I'm going to call him an aspiring actor, an aspiring star. Like, he is acting, and this show is very much about the values of being an actor, the day-to-day life of acting. So you've got him. He's at the stage of his career where he's kind of getting a number of sort of day player roles on various TV shows. We see him in the opening of this one. He's got a day spot on the American Horror Story TV show, and he screws it up in a way that he screws up a lot of his gigs, which is that he's just a little bit too method in trying to get to the core as to who a character is. And in the world of television, where production moves along at quite a clip, he slows down production, just kind of annoys a lot of people. And the thing that his biggest impediment to finding success is himself and his craft and his love of acting. He also has a little bit of a superpowered secret, but, that's not really necessarily at the forefront of the show entirely. A lot of this really is about the struggles of being an actor in Los Angeles. He has a quote unquote chance encounter with another actor who's much further in his career, played by the great Ben Kingsley. It's Trevor Slattery, who we know from the Iron Man 3 movie quite a few years back. And he's reprising the same character here, and he's the older day player. He's effectively Simon Williams, but much further in his career, and just has a lot more stories to tell about Hollywood of yesteryear. This is unlike any other Marvel TV program that we've seen so far. It's unlike any of the movies. The way the critics keep talking about this is, hey, if you're not really into superheroes that much, or you got superhero fatigue, check this out. It's really, really good. Which is kind of just that way of giving it sort of faint praise. A guy, oh, it's not really a superhero thing. And it's like, well, if the value of this isn't that it's a superhero project, movie or TV show or whatever, like, why am I watching it? Like, can't I just watch an episode of Barry, for example, which is exploring kind of similar-ish terrain, but, just approaching genre in just an entirely different way? I mean, at a certain point, a Marvel superhero show needs to look and feel like a Marvel superhero show. The problem with the look and feel of a Marvel superhero show is that it's been kind of a bit of a dull experience for the last 5 or 6 years. Some would suggest longer than that, and I'd probably be in that crowd. But like at the same time, there is kind of like certain expectations of what a Marvel product should be. And when you're getting this far out of the boundary, that causes a problem. Now, ordinarily, that doesn't cause a problem. Like, you think about, say, WandaVision when that came out years ago, and that's the really good comp for this. When WandaVision came out years ago, you've got this situation where it felt quite different to all the other Marvel stuff. And the point of difference was what worked about it. But also, it's happening at a time where people were still actively engaged with all the other Marvel stuff. Marvel as a broader brand isn't necessarily working. And then you got this thing which is completely counter to what Marvel as a product is about. Then it just feels off. Like, why am I necessarily watching a Marvel program here? Like, couldn't this just be something else? It's a frustrating experience, and the metatextual element of this is just coming along at the exact wrong time for what Marvel needs to be. Instead of giving us metatextual, just give us a good product for once, which we haven't really seen for like about 5 years, outside of maybe WandaVision and the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Like, it just kind of feels as though the energies are placed in the entirely wrong position, and it makes sense that Disney are burning this off. They've dropped all 8 episodes at once, and the only other time they've done that for a Marvel TV show, I think, was the Echo TV show. Considering that, I'm sure there's probably tumbleweeds, as I mentioned, the Echo TV show. I don't think that anyone's necessarily all that invested in that as a program, nor did it seem was Disney or Marvel. Look, I just think this is the wrong program for the wrong time. And look, that said, it's fine. This is a show which is supposed to be for people that don't want to follow all the Marvel continuity. But at the same time, it falls into the exact same trap as every other Marvel thing, where for you to enjoy this program, you've got to get through the following barriers. One, you have to remember who the Trevor character is and what all the business is with the Mandarin.
Jeez.
Okay. And so for something which is standalone, and like, look, the show isn't like, if you hadn't seen that stuff, you're going to be sitting there wondering, oh, wait, how much of this stuff do I actually really need to have known? I feel I'm missing a really big chunk. But if you have seen that and you actually kind of remember, you'd look at this going, oh, you actually don't really need to know that at all. But you still think that you'd need to know it if you didn't know it. So there's your big sort of hurdle right there. So either lean into it completely or just don't do that shit. Like, would that not be the
Yeah.
easier thing? But then the
I
other
get
thing
it.
as well is that this is, and look, cards on the table, this is the best thing Marvel's done since WandaVision back in like the early days of the pandemic.
I didn't think you were going there. I thought you were working up for a real big razzing, but that's a big
No.
call.
But like it is, like it's the best thing, but that's also faint praise because since like WandaVision, like I'd argue that maybe WandaVision's the only good thing that isn't Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 that Marvel's done since. Like, you know, since the Avengers like resets and the pandemic set in. Like it's been a lousy 6 or so years for Marvel. Okay, WandaVision, One Demand Vision being the one good thing that they've actually really put out. But instead, you've just got this TV show which is trying to be really meta. It's trying to talk to an audience which aren't there for this. Like, I don't understand who Marvel's talking at when they're presenting this TV program. And that's my big fundamental concern while I'm watching this, in that, is this show necessarily for me? And it's like, well, maybe. Like, I kind of get what all the references are, but at the same time, like, I prefer just be watching Barry on HBO. Like, if I want to watch a TV show which is playing around with this idea of actors confronting sort of genre, why wouldn't I just watch something better?
That's where you're at. Yeah, I get it. I got no interest in Wonder Man, so I can't add too much to this conversation.
Here's the thing, Simon. If you watched it, you would be very much arguing with me about how wonderful this is, and you would love it.
Why? Because of the metatextual, because of the industry insider
The
jokes
industry,
that
the
I
industry
get
nonsense
and-
that you eat up with a spoon.
Yeah, that's
And the
right.
thing
Well,
is,
that's true.
This has gotten critical raves. And
It
I think
really
part
has,
of it
yes.
is because it's an industry-based thing. And so all the critics watching it, they get it. They're interested in hearing like the Marvel take on the actor's journey and all that sort of business. Because
Sure.
as a drama about two struggling actors who are really having difficulty sort of finding their place in an industry which is squeezing them out in a way that almost every actor feels that they're being squeezed out. Like, it's actually a pretty good TV program. The only thing that really sort of hampers it, I feel, is the Marvel connection to it all. And so if you're doing Marvel's version of this TV show, either do that TV show or do a Marvel TV show, be pure of intent. And I don't think Marvel's in a position right now where it can start playing around in the margins to have this metatextual version of a Marvel program. Like, I think that people are so burned out on Marvel, just give us a pure of intent program. Stop mucking around like this because you're just not satisfying anyone.
Pure of intent. That's one of your best ever. Wonder Man is on Disney Plus, part of the MCU. Check it out or don't check it out. All right, let's get on to what's happening on the big screen around town. This week's big release, maybe, is Send Help with the lovely Rachel McAdams. Play clip.
I'm going to be frank with you. You are smart. I know that you are great with numbers, but I just don't think you got it. As an executive, I see no value in you. Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, what?
You know we have the Bangkok merger coming up. Prove me wrong. Oh, Linda, before you go, I forgot to mention I've received a few complaints about you.
Complaints?
Noxious odors.
Oh, God.
We meet the lovely Linda Laddle, played by Rachel McAdams, being very much exploited and downtrodden in an office job where she has spent the best part of a decade making her way up through the business. The man who was mentoring her has left, and his son, played by scumbag, douchebag, crapola kind of guy, Dylan O'Brien, has slipped into the corporate executive position and is just ignoring her and down treading upon her career goals. He decides to give her one last chance in bunny ears to make a name for herself, despite her having been doing that for the last decade, and puts her on a plane with some of his executives and himself and heads off to Bangkok. Now, the private plane does not make it to Bangkok. It splashes down in a very spectacular sequence, and the only survivors are Linda and Bradley, and they wash up on the shores of a Thai island where her survivor skills, and I use that with a capital S, she's been trying to get onto Survivor, the TV show, for many, many years, suddenly reverse the power dynamic, and Linda is in charge of the badly injured Bradley, nursing him back to health, but all the time being mighty aware of his microaggressions and his very alpha male sort of posturing when he does not deserve to do so. So what you have here is this Castaway Island type of scenario, but the real meat and bones here is the gender arm wrestle, the gender clash, the power struggle that exists between these two. And director Sam Raimi, making his first film since the aforementioned MCU entry, Doctor Strange and what was it? Orange Card of Death or something. I can't remember what it was called.
Why must he talking about sports?
Who's
Isn't the
talking
Orange
about
Card of
sports?
Death like a sports?
I don't think so. Sam Raimi did do one sports movie. He did For the Love of the Game with Kevin Costner and Kelly Preston. But no, he wasn't talking about sports.
I read a list of the best Sam Raimi movies the other day. And
yes. Well, this is interesting. This will open up.
That movie with Kevin Costner was not near the top.
No, it's a tough slog. Sports romance isn't really... it was proven isn't really Sam's thing. One of my favorite Sam Raimi movies outside of the Evil Dead films, of course, is a little film called A Simple Plan with Billy Bob Thornton and Bridget Fonda and Bill Paxton. And that film's character interactions and tiny sort of character moments represent the best parts of Send Help as well. The thing with Send Help is that there's a lot of sort of maneuvering power games happening around the fire and in the campsite on the island. And then in the final act, things sort of go off the rails a bit. And I'm not going to give it away, but they introduce an element which kind of pulls the rug out of everything else that's gone before it, not only in terms of the enjoyment of having them both completely marooned on this island, but also in the strength that Linda has shown in sort of saving them and building them up. She starts to become a bit sort of mentally fractured and a bit sort of strange, not wanting to give up her position of power. And then that double downs with this element at the end, which I thought undid the film a little bit. So much good stuff goes on in the first two acts that I'm willing to, give a pass for the final act sort of derailment, but it's disappointing that it didn't end on a real high like I thought it was heading towards. So I think you'll really enjoy this film, Dan. It's a real crowd-pleasing sort of movie, not without its moments of Sam Raimi-esque blood and guts. Anyone who saw his film Drag Me to Hell will remember the goat sequence. He has a similar scene in this one with the wild pig that just got the audience really roused up when I watched this one the other night. So Send Help in cinemas now. A lot shot here in Australia too. Some recognisable actors in the cast, notably Xavier Samuels as the ultimate sort of office douchebag who gets his comeuppance on the plane crash sequence. So good to see Aussie talent behind the camera making a film like this.
Like that, when you go to movie premieres, and I assume that you saw this at the media premiere the other week, which I wasn't able to make it to, and I was a little bit annoyed by that. But usually when you go to these things, they'll have some sort of like staging at the front, and often when there's
like an activation.
Now, I remember seeing the like Superman movie last year, and they had a dog there, like Crypto, in there. You can like pose for photos. Were you able to pose for a photo with a wild pig?
No. In fact, we dressed in we being my beautiful wife and I, dressed in outfits that were preparing for, maybe a fake sand or some sand on the ground, a fake island backdrop and something like that, because we thought this was absolutely ready for activation style pre-screening marketing. None. Not a one.
Man,
photo board, but nothing else. Man.
You saw all about your Instagram.
We love our gram.
Yeah. Anyway,
so no stars for the pre-screening activation effort, but quite a few stars for the movie.
Let us move on. Some news as we record this that came out just a couple of hours ago. We lost Catherine O'Hara.
This was a shock. Obviously, I mean, Only in reading her obituaries that, as they turned up this morning on the internet, did it mention that she'd had a short illness. It didn't say what. And I don't know if you've got any information on that. Hear of her passing was very sudden and very sad. My Catherine O'Hara years were the movie years. This Home Alone, the Christopher Guest mockumentaries, they were sort of peak. I think you and I are both a little bit too young to have been around for the Canadian TV.
I mean, you were a little bit too young. I would say I was a lot too young.
You're well and truly too young. We know of the Canadian television comedy stuff she did with Martin Short and her husband, Eugene Levy, by watching sort of the clips that have been everywhere over the last few years after the success of Schitt's Creek. But yeah, such a sad loss. Have you got a Catherine O'Hara memory?
Look, I mean, Catherine O'Hara is one of these figures where she's always just sort of cropped up here and there. I don't know if I've necessarily got like a sort of strong attachment to Catherine O'Hara. I liked her, but I don't know this necessarily really hit me in a sort of significant way. I think when I think about her career, the first Beetlejuice movie is very much the first thing that comes to mind every time for me.
Yep, that's our age group.
Yeah, she's fantastic in that. And certainly being, I guess, sort of the age that I am, Home Alone weighs pretty heavily culturally for me. Although I've never been like the biggest Home Alone person. Like it's fine. But yeah, I was never crazy for it. But like, look, the Home Alone was on in our house about maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and sat down and watched it, and it was always just interesting how I wouldn't say that she necessarily lifts the movie, and I don't think she ever necessarily lifted most of the movies and TV shows that I saw her in, but she was always like just incredibly engaging and captivating on screen. There's always a reason why somebody becomes a breakout star, and I think with her it was always very evident. Like she's just incredibly charismatic in every single performance.
I thought the interpretation of her character in Schitt's Creek and the willingness she portrayed to go down some very silly plot points but make them entirely human and believable was testament to what a unique talent she was in that regard. Whereas everybody in that cast, I mean, Eugene Levy was a kind of an everyman, although he had his own foibles, of course, and the two kids were sort of reactive to the town around them and what their parents did. She had the most unique comic perspective on that, and I think that spoke to what a talent she was. And some of that stuff she did there's a great documentary, and God, I can't remember the name of it. That whole time I was stretching to try to think of the name, about the early Canadian comedic place and the staging of Godspell, which featured Eugene Levy and Martin Short and and John Candy and any number of those great Canadian. If you could see that, I wish I could remember the name of it. It's a great doco and showed exactly what she was capable of. So, R.I.P. Catherine O'Hara, very sad.
That staging of Godspell, and I'm sure this documentary goes into it, but I would suggest that almost everything that's great about Canadian and American comedy from the last 50 years can kind of trace all of its roots back to the casting of that Godspell performance.
I know, that's the feeling I get every time it's mentioned. I'm sure it came up in the John Candy doc, and it definitely came up in the Godspell doc. But yeah,
just to like paint the picture for people who just aren't really across it, basically everyone who was in SCTV, like people look at SCTV as this sort of early progenitor for things like Saturday Night Live and all these other
groundlings,
groundlings and all these other really influential sort of comedy movements, and a lot of it comes way back to that. But most of the casting from SCTV came from this Godspell staging, which
Joe Flaherty and
like all the SCTV guys, and then also some additional sort of hangers-on, so people like say Paul Schaefer, for example, like he was connected with that, I'm pretty sure. And it's just surprising just how many people were part of Godspell.
And it wasn't the first production of Godspell. It was the first Canadian, sort of major Canadian production of Godspell. It was a coming together of comedic minds in just that unique, strange kind of way that the gods was clearly looking down, the comedic gods were looking down on it and saying, yeah, let's make something special out of this. So yeah, do try and see that doco if you can.
Yeah. Now, Simon, let's get into what else we've been watching. You saw something called Worldbreaker. What is this?
Not Worldbreaker, which is the Muppet movie. This is Worldbreaker. Now, I don't often talk about the home entertainment releases here in Australia. This one is actually going into American cinemas as we speak, January 30th. It's getting a small release over there, but it's already out on your Apple Store and all the other home entertainment avenues you can go down to watch movies nowadays. Worldbreaker stars Luke Evans.
But before you go into this, I just loaded it up on Google and this looks awful, but please go ahead.
No. Okay, so I was brought to it by 2 points of view. A, it's a Milla Jovovich monster movie. Now, I'm a huge fan of Milla Jovovich monster movies. But more specifically...
So you're not necessarily after quality here is what you're suggesting.
More specifically, it is directed by a guy called Brad Anderson, who's a director that I've been watching for a long time. He made a movie with Christian Bale 20-odd years ago called The Machinist. It was the movie that Christian Bale lost heaps of weight for, and it's a very dark sort of dystopian story, and it was an incredible movie. And Brad Anderson's career has sort of ebbed and flowed after that time with a lot of interesting films that nobody sees and a lot of commercial gigs which aren't really good. And this one, Worldbreaker, kind of falls in the middle of that. It stars Luke Evans as a father who takes his teenage daughter, played by Billy Bouillet, into the mountains when crevices start to open up around the world and creatures come out of them and take back the landscape. The world has suffered far too long under human overpopulation and climate change. And then the Earth says, I've had enough here. Take these monsters. I'm going to wipe out human populations. Now, these monsters can also connect with the Y chromosomes in male humans and create these horrific hybrid characters, but they can't do that with women. So the women become the warriors, which is where Milla Jovovich falls in. She becomes this sort of Mad Max style warrior heroine who saves the world over and over again from the attack of these beasties, all while her family are living in isolation. If you're tuning in to see this for kind of Starship Trooper-like bug splattering stuff, you'll get that in the first half hour or so, and then you can tap out. But if you stick with this movie, you sort of get this father-daughter dark chamber piece, and the tension is there as the monsters start to come towards the island on which they're living. And I've actually found it pretty good. It's an Irish production, all backed by Screen Island and featuring some of the beautiful, rough sort of coastal landscapes of that fine land. And the monster stuff, when it kicks in, is pretty good. So this one skimmed by cinemas, and I can see why, because kind of for the second half, it's pretty much just a dark sort of candlelit drama for a lot of it. But if you can stick with it, it's a fine film. Worldbreaker, available for sale or rental on your home entertainment platform.
So your mileage on that one may vary. Simon's given a hugely enthusiastic review. I'd maybe sort of look at the 2 stars that are predominantly being sort of included there on the Letterboxd and 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, or the New York Times review that says that it shamelessly recombines overused ideas and ends the review with the statement, January movies don't come duller. So
yeah, I did see that. I thought that was mean. Mean. Speaking of mean, guess what else? What I've been watching, Dan Barrett?
Oh, actually, don't do that. I've got a lead in that I want to do with Melania. So let me quickly do X-Files first, and then we'll do Melania. Simon, the last couple of weeks I've been talking about my X-Files rewatch. Now,
yes, you have.
Here's the thing. I've been managed to plow through almost the full season of the X-Files pretty much every week for the last couple of weeks. I wasn't able to get through a full season this week.
How many episodes are we talking? Is this because this was back in the days of peak television when you'd get like 18 or 19 episodes, isn't it?
Yeah. So look, we talked about this last week. For the second season, which is what I watched last week, I got through all 25 episodes.
Jeez.
Okay, but this week I was not able to watch anywhere near that many episodes. I got through a mere 19 episodes of the X-Files this past week.
Taking it easy, were we, Dan Barrett? What else are you doing with your life?
So I'm going to... Do I talk about the X-Files this week, or do I wait till next week? But if I wait till next week, I'm going to be halfway through season 4 by the time that we talk about this. So look,
it's up to you.
Maybe we'll talk about it. Here's what you need to know. We talked about how with the first season of the show, it's pretty patchy, but there's a couple of like really big bright spots. With the second season, it's a lot more of a refined series. Like the bright spots shine just that little bit brighter. The performance is just kind of sort of embedded in, and like it's certainly a better show in that second season. The third season, I would say that broadly, I don't think that the highs really get anywhere near as high as we've seen in the second season and maybe some elements of that first season. But as a full run of episodes so far, and keep in mind I'm at episode 19, and I know that once I get past this awful episode I'm just about to watch, there's like a whole range of like just like 4 or 5 stonking good episodes from this point in.
Okay.
I know that's coming. But certainly, this is so much more of a confident, sophisticated TV program. Like, it really feels like the entire production has just congealed to the point where you know that you're watching this show and it will never be better than what they're delivering on this season. Now, maybe next season, well, I was going to say next season, I may sort of retract that and I may say, no, season 4 is actually like more confident again. But I suspect that this is like peak X-Files that I'm in right
To
now.
that point, I would say I have always found the very best seasons of all my favorite TV shows have been around 3 or 4 when they start to get in their exact. Seinfeld was the same, Simpsons was the same. All the ones that I watch over and over again, 3, 4, and 5 have been the best seasons. So I'm not surprised that's the case with X-Files. I would also say that it's about this time that 20th Century Fox is starting to realize the potential of what they've got. And
No,
they're putting
they
a lot
realized
more.
that potential in the second season because that's why there was 25 episodes. They got them to
But they're
squeeze out a couple
fueling
of
this with
extras.
more money. But they're putting more money and giving more creative control over to Carter and his team. And so, yeah, I get this is why 3s and 4s are the best seasons of most shows, and certainly the case with the X-Files, in my opinion.
Highlights to consider: Clyde Brockman's Final Repose is every bit as good as people.
Great Peter Boyle. Yep.
The Emmy Award-winning episode as well.
Yep.
Sorry, the season, because season 2 ends with Mulder trapped in a boxcar that's been let alight in the New Mexico desert.
Right. Yep.
Okay, iconic ending. I don't think that any episode is probably as well remembered as those as the closing moments of that. That's kind of where the mainstream excitement around the show was just kind of really starting to like hit its stride. And so when I ended a season like that, people were like, oh my God, like, how could you get out of this? And it's TV was obviously going to get out of it, but whatever. The follow-up 2 episodes, The Blessing Way and Paperclip, neither are as good. Like, ultimately, like Paperclip's okay. Like, it's fairly big in ambition, but it's perfectly okay. It just kind of does the business. But Clyde Brockman's Final Repose, really quite good. There were a couple of surprising.
Is this the season of War of the Caprahagis? Is this the cockroach season?
It is. I was about to get to that in just a moment.
Okay, yeah.
There's an episode which I always remembered hating called The List, which is a prison-based drama. Surprisingly, really, really good. Then there's like a bunch of like just ordinary, just like rubbish things. There's a 2-parter in the middle of the season, which is a like another mythology episode, and that's the one where there's a train that's been used by Japanese scientists. That Scully, when she was abducted in the previous season, was apparently taken to that train, and that's where they did the experiments on her, and so they find that carriage. I always remembered liking that, and I found that just to be a bit of a chore getting through these 2 episodes. Like, there's decent moments through it. Like, it's not terrible, but it's just not what it was. War of the,
Caprahagis.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so. That's how I've been pronounced it.
I know how I've always pronounced it through my entire life was wildly wrong. But that episode, I remember
they're not good bedfellows.
No, I remember thinking that episode was like quite good, not as good as the other Darren Morgan episodes, but still quite good. Watching it through this time, it doesn't really hold together particularly well at all. Like, I was watching it thinking this just does not like land. Like, the jokes, like some of the jokes were kind of okay, but it just didn't really pop in the same way that every other Darren Morgan script does. And then I was reading up on the show afterwards, and there's a quote from Darren Morgan saying that he watched the episode with his girlfriend and the episode just doesn't work for him. And like, I was like, you're right.
Turning
like,
on his own children. Jeez.
Yeah. So the episode that comes after this one is this one called Syzygy. And this is Chris Carter trying to do a Darren Morgan episode. And you watch this, and everything that didn't work about the previous episode makes the previous episode look amazing. Because that cockroach episode compared to Chris Carter trying to do Darren Morgan, like, it's Emmy Award worthy, just in terms of like a quality comparison.
All right.
Syzygy is, maybe, I'm going to put it out there, the worst episode of this TV series.
I'm going to be honest with you. I have not gone through a full X-Files rewatch. I've picked up here and there my favorite episodes over the year, but I haven't gone through a full X-Files rewatch in a couple of decades. I still see them through rose-colored glasses, so it's very hard for me to. And while I absolutely appreciate your newfound opinion on some of these older episodes, it jars me a little bit to hear retrospective reviewing of stuff that was kind of a big deal back in my day. So I'll contribute as best I can to this, but it is a like I say, I've still got these rose-colored glasses on when it comes to all things X-Files.
So we're literally talking about TV episodes here that are 30 years old.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that
and
were seminal in my sort of love of television and remain so.
and certainly if you talked to me even a few weeks ago and talked about that cockroach episode, I would have said, no, it's actually a lot better than people give it credit for. Okay, but I actually think that the naysayers on this one, and there are naysayers on that episode, including Darren
And they
Morgan,
were
the
back
writer
then.
of it.
And they were back then. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah.
And yeah, I think they're completely right. I don't think that episode holds together anywhere near as well as it does. But the outstandingly best episode of this season, Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, is very good. Okay, but the best episode is this one called Pusher, which I always remember thinking was perfectly fine, but I was never like gaga for it back in the day. So this is Vince Gilligan's contribution for this season. I thought in in the back of my brain, I thought Vince Gilligan had done the episode in a previous season and was on board as a staff writer for season 3 onwards. Not the case. This is just him, like as a freelance writer, just having a script commissioned.
Just pitching storylines and hoping they'll pick it up. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, you watch this and it is a perfect X-Files episode. It's really,
Push is a
really
great
very good.
episode. Remind the people what it's about.
So this is
quickly.
one, and like it feels like a feature film that's just been condensed down to like 44 minutes. The premise of this one is that you've got a guy he's an everyday schmo who has some sort of like aneurysm at some point, but it allows him to suddenly have the ability to be able to push people to do things. So it's about the cadence of his voice. It's about the way that he looks at them. He's able to convince people to do things that are not in their best interest. And that might be setting themselves on fire. That might be driving in front of a truck. That might be doing all sorts of things that can lead someone to get fully murdered. And so this guy who was like an everyday schmo is suddenly imbued with like this amazing ability. And so he starts sort of fashioning himself as like a Japanese Ronin, like a ninja who's walking the earth without a master. And so it's basically
who played him? I can picture him in my head. Who was
he's just some guy.
Some guy?
I don't think he's anyone of note.
Okay. Yep, sorry, go on.
But basically, he's been sort of in this sort of cat and mouse with like a local homicide detective. And so that guy's been tracking him for like some time now. But then he discovers Mulder. And so he sees because he's had this like aneurysm, he's like on his final days. He's not taking medication for it at all. And he wants to go out in a really big way. And what bigger way is there to go out than like his greatest adversary that he finds? And so that's Mulder. So he's using this as an opportunity to essentially, it's like death by cop. And so, like, it even ends with like a Russian roulette scene with them in this hospital with him convincing Mulder to play this game of Russian roulette. It's really it's a cool hour of TV.
Okay, that's cool.
So this season has the worst episode of the show, which is Syzygy, and Pusher, which I think is absolutely one of the best. And then right now, I'm midway through Teso dos Bicos, which is a I think it's like I'm like 10 minutes in. It's like an Aztec artifact thing.
Yep.
It's awful. It is just unwatchable. And so the reason I'm only at episode 18 of the season is because I'm struggling through this episode. And I know that the next episode, Hell Money, is not much better.
Hell Money, I don't remember that.
Yeah. But then after that, I've got Jose Chung's From Outer Space. I've got Avatar, which I don't remember Avatar too clearly, but I remember thinking it was a fairly good one.
Terrible.
There's Quagmire, which is Avatar. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, if you're going to connect it to that animated series, but I'm sure there's a series of very good feature films that you could probably connect it to as well. That's the one with the Loch Ness Monster that they're chasing. Wet Wide, which is a good sort of techno-conspiracy episode. And then Talitha Kumi, which is the finale, which I actually don't remember at all. I think it might end with a fast food shooting, like a fast food outlet shooting.
Right.
But beyond that, I don't recall it. So I think I've got like a fun couple of days ahead to get through that. But Simon,
and
let's move on. You've watched something which is, I guess, a contentious conversational point for this podcast.
Yes, I decided that if I'm going to be a film critic that gives opinion across a broad range of cinema releases, I really should weigh in on the limited release being given to Melania. This is the documentary directed by...
Can we just borrow in on that word limited?
Yeah, sure.
Because here's the thing.
I don't think that's the important point to do with Melania, but let's have a listen to it, sure.
I think it's really important for the context of this. which is that I don't understand why you're reviewing this movie, because it's a propaganda movie. It's not really playing in cinemas in a serious way. It's being played in very small theaters at only the Hoyts chain and maybe some of the indie cinemas around the country, but certainly Birchall Coil and event cinemas, like, they're not playing it at all. Okay, it's only playing at Hoyts. It's only playing one session a day. The sessions that it's playing are rooms that are no more than like 15 seats for the majority of them. There's, I think, one seat out in Western Sydney, like one cinema in Western Sydney that's like a bigger, like, 80, 90 seat cinema. But the rest are small little boutique theaters that are playing it. Most of them are pretty much empty. There's 1 or 2 tickets sold for all of them, with the exception of Cronulla, I think, which the session playing today has got like 2 tickets left. So people, if you want to see it in Cronulla, rush right now. This is not a proper cinema release. The only reason this movie exists is purely as a political play for Jeff Bezos to be able to move some of the more contentious things he wants through Amazon, through the US government. And that involves things like his internet satellites and, I guess various other projects. But I think the internet satellites, which is going to need some pretty serious regulatory approval in the coming year and a half, like, that's why this documentary exists. Simon,
So
go
what's your
ahead. What value does this have to, one, discuss, and two, to consider as a artistic endeavor?
I'm not suggesting it has any artistic endeavor whatsoever. I wasn't going to say that in my review. This is a documentary that has been put forward for all the reasons that you state. I saw it at the 4:30 session at the Hoyts Warringah Mall. I would say about 100-seat auditorium. There were maybe 20 people there.
Maybe that's
It
the one. I
is-
was thinking it was Western Sydney, but maybe it was Warringah Mall. I know it was on the outskirts somewhere of Sydney.
Not sure, yeah.
I just thought, I loaded it up. So there was a funny article on Mumbrella where they talked about one pre-sale ticket across all of Hoyts when it opened. But like, that was a little bit too early, and I think it was a bit of a cheap shot. But I went through and I looked at like all the sessions, and it was just that one cinema. So maybe it was Warringah.
So I guess that brings me to the point of what is the point of this movie. Having watched the film, it's all the things we kind of expected it to be. It's a willfully deceitful film. It's a film that doesn't speak to the reality of America, whether you're a right-wing supporter or a left-wing supporter, as we know it to be. It is a fanciful version of the reality that Melania lives. The first 25 minutes of this film, we watch her get fitted in very expensive clothes, in very expensive rooms around a very expensive house. She talks at length about how she wants the staging of at least 3 sort of major social events to go down, the balls that she's so obsessed with. This takes up a lot of this movie, and we should point out that a lot has been spent on making this movie, and it's a big widescreen cinematic presentation with 3 different cinematographers, each of which have a lot of industry credibility from past works, people like Jeff Cronenworth and a couple of other names. So the money has been put into this 104-minute documentary, and I'll keep calling it a documentary for now because that's how it's being sold. It is really a testament to affectation, which is what Mar-a-Lago is and what they're turning the White House into and what she is in every sense of the word. This is a movie about dressing up reality and creating a world and an image of herself that serves her husband's purpose. The film takes a pivot at about the midway point, and we start to focus in on the pageantry and the overstatedness, if that's a word, of his inauguration. And then Barron Trump, who has kind of been kept out of the news coverage that we watch of the Trump administration, but in this film starts to become a lot more centered in the Melania Donald Trump story. Barron starts to sort of appear at the edge of the frame, and he's quite an imposing figure, very tall and very striking in the face. And then he starts to take on close-ups, and they start to talk about how Barron is going through some of the highest sort of learning institutions in America to ready himself for adult life. And you start to realize that this is the point of the film. It's less about examining what a first lady does and more about imagining what a queen does and setting up Trump and the Trump family as some long-term legacy-fulfilling White House inhabitant. Right before our very eyes, we're seeing nothing about how she impacts the America of today, but absolutely how Trump and his family is going to impact the America of tomorrow. And that's where the propaganda is really at work in this. It's a strengthening of the long-term goals of what Trump wants to do, of breaking down democracy as it stands and rebuilding it in his own image and to his own agenda. So as a documentary about Melania, this is negligible and dismissible. As a warning as to what Trump is trying to do and how he's got his hands around the throat of the White House and the throat of the American democracy, that's where this is propaganda, and that's why this is so dangerous.
Look, I don't feel that I needed to even see the movie to feel that was.
But nor could I comment
case.
on it in a way without seeing it. If I didn't see it and I wanted to talk about it, I'd have no integrity. I have no credibility whatsoever in talking about it. I can't. I mean, I've spent the last 20 years of my film reviewing life reviewing climate change documentaries and fracking documentaries and woodland destruction documentaries and putting all of that into that. Now, if I'm going to have any sort of balance to what I do, I have to go and see films like this and comment on what they're talking to. My obviously my review is going to be influenced by my left-wing views and that sort of thing, but I have to bring an objectivity to what I see before me in everything I review, and that includes Melania. So I felt absolutely justified in reviewing.
Back in 1984, there was a TV miniseries, well, maybe 1983. I didn't check this out beforehand. It's 83, 84. There was a TV miniseries that aired on NBC across 2 nights called V. Now, the thing with V, Simon, is that I don't know in Australia that we've seen V maybe since it was originally broadcast. I don't know if it's actually been on TV because I have this very strong recollection of me as a, fairly sci-fi interested, would have been maybe 14-year-old. Okay, talking to one of my neighbors who said, "Hey, look, if you want to come borrow some this is really taking us back. If you want to borrow some VHS tapes, I've got a decent movie collection. Come and take a look." So I used to wander down to her house every so often. I'd borrow some movies. And I discovered this box set in there of this thing called V. I'd never even heard of it at that point.
Oh, wow. Really? At that stage?
No,
Yeah,
I'd never
it
heard
was a
about it.
big deal back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, but no one was talking about it. So in 1994, this was not a topic of conversation. It was not a miniseries that was regularly broadcast on TV.
Oh, no, not at all.
It just
I was
wasn't
about to
on.
say it did
Didn't
have a
exist.
VHS release. It did have a box set release, and I think it's even had a DVD release over the years. But
It did.
not that to my knowledge has it showed up on any of the streamers anywhere. Or maybe it has. I don't know.
Yeah, so this is the thing. It doesn't appear on, we've never seen it on Australian streaming services. We've never really had it replayed on television at all. It just doesn't really exist. The biggest sort of artifact of it in terms of my consciousness was the DVD release, which was, mid 2000s. And when they released it on DVD, they gave it a proper widescreen release because they'd filmed it for widescreen presentation for whatever forward thinking reason at the time. Anyway, it looks gorgeous as a widescreen release. It's certainly, it's a dated TV movie miniseries. So it looks every bit like a miniseries from 1983. Okay, but that said, it's really nicely shot. The costume design on it is really, really cool.
Awesome.
Even some of the effects work, at least in V, maybe not so much in V, The Final Battle, which is the sequel miniseries that came out the next year. It's noteworthy talking about it in 2026 because when I started watching the V miniseries, which I did maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago, this was right as we start seeing the ice situation in Minnesota right now. We're seeing the everyday. And look, this isn't a new thing that's happening, but certainly it's heightened because of Minnesota. And so I'm watching it very much through Minnesotan eyes as I'm watching it. This everyday situation where people are standing up to what's taking place, but as everyone's standing up, there's just as many other people turning a blind eye to it. There's enough people making excuses for what's going on. And the whole thing with V is that it's supposed to be a metaphor for Nazi Germany back in the day and how that came about. But when V aired in 1984, Kenneth Johnson, the guy that wrote it, writing it with the idea of, hey, this is a veiled idea of what could happen in America, he's writing it from this viewpoint of, look, it's never going to happen here again, but let's have an academic idea as to what it might look like. But suddenly it is incredibly relevant to the current moment in that you really are seeing what America can look like, okay, with an authoritarian takeover. And we're seeing this playing out in real time on our television screens. And that can be hard for a lot of people to stomach and a lot of people to be able to process the ethical violations that are taking place there. But a really good way to be able to process that is through watching fantastical dramas, like, for example, I don't know, the 1983/84 miniseries V and V: The Final Battle.
Yep.
I really wish this was more widely available somewhere. If you're in the US or you've got a VPN, you can watch it for free on the Plex streaming service at the moment. Okay, outside of that, I don't know where else you're seeing this, but it is available around the place. And if you've one, never seen it, or two, it's been some time since you've watched it, sit down and watch at least the first miniseries. Because one, it's still very watchable, but two, your jaw will just hit the ground as to how relevant this feels in the current moment.
You are absolutely spot on in terms of how it is symbolic of what is happening in America at this very point in time. Only through my Sci-Fi Film Festival sort of forums and connections and deep dive discussions on all things sci-fi do I know that there absolutely is a groundswell of support for V in this day and age, and your comments exactly mirror what some of the more learned genre experts are saying, that for an early 80s miniseries that had no idea where America was heading, it perfectly sums up where it is. So, yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, but no, watch it. And also, it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it is.
The first miniseries, I think, struggles a little bit for like the first sort of 10 minutes in that it's a bit sort of slowly paced. But as soon as you start seeing the UFOs, like it just rockets right in. Like it's a
And this was
very
pretty
good watch.
peak sort of American miniseries era. This was sort of made for TV kind of content era. This was the year of The Day After, the great nuclear disaster movie. This was the Thornbirds sort of era. This was when American television was creating these epic miniseries, The Winds of War and stuff like that, post Roots, but still of the same.
Yeah, look, absolutely. But yeah, folks, check it out. As I said, it's currently streaming on Plex. So, and also it's not the widescreen presentation on Plex, which is a little bit annoying.
Screen Watching, go to Facebook at Screen Watching Podcast, on the YouTube at Screen Watching, or email screenwatchingpodcast@gmail.com for, I'd love to hear some views on V and Melania and some feedback on some of the issues we've raised in today's podcast. We went a little bit deep and dark on some of the things we discussed, and that's fine as well. And you can read my rantings.
People can get a fact sheet about what we've been writing if they send a stamped self-addressed envelope to, where's the address?
The fact sheet. Remember the old fact sheet? Screen Space newsletter at Substack, where you can see a few more of my writings on these topics.
If folks want to find me, you can find me more eloquently at alwaysbewatching.com. It's a newsletter. It's a way of life. It lands in your inbox Monday through Friday. On Fridays, there's a bonus email that comes out, which gives you TV listings as to all the new streaming shows and returning shows they can watch and fill up your weekends with.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah,
what are we talking about next week? What do we got going on next week? We're in this kind of kids back to school, end of the summer holidays here in Australia type of things, which is usually a bit of a dry patch, which you alluded to in your New York Times comment there. The duller of the movie releases of the year tend to come around this time. So next week we've got We Bury the Dead, which is the Australian zombie film with Daisy Ridley, which I'm going to get very excited about. But I don't know what else.
Look, I'm just suddenly loading up the list of new programs that I could discuss, and it is scant. So I think that if you want to listen in next week, I'll probably be talking about the big mistake I'll make, which is moving on to V, the series, which was the, I want to say quickly cancelled, because I think they managed to eke out about 19 episodes before they get cancelled that thing. But look, I've tried the first maybe 3 or 4 episodes of that in the past, and whew, that is some stinky television. But, you know, if I can refrain from watching that, then I guess I'll try to find something else to discuss. I don't have a screener for it, but there is the Burbs TV series launching on Sunday.
Well, I got a screener for that. Didn't you get a screener? I got a screener for that.
I didn't put a request in.
Oh, okay.
I've got to get onto the right list. All right,
there's also, I'm a Kelly Riley fan. Post Yellowstone, she's made a TV series called Under the Salt Marsh, or The Salt Marshes, or something like that, which I got a screen. I'm a big fan of her, so I might check.
Well, you don't need a screener for it, Simon, in that it's currently streaming right now on Binge.
Oh, it already started. Okay.
It's called Under Salt Marsh.
Under Saltmarsh, yes. And it looks
Which you'd
quite
know that
cute.
if you'd read the Always Be Streaming newsletter, which should be in your inbox right now.
That's the thing that you do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
yeah, I
right.
should check that out one day. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Dan. Bye.
Wait, sorry. Shrinking's back this season. It's fine. Folks, we'll be back next week. See ya.